Be me, be 20 years old, about, be with the same lady for like a while, and in bitter heartbreak, fast forward like 6 years, she's engaged, has a house, and you don't have any of that. Not even that is as heartbreaking as canceling my World of Warcraft subscription since being subscribed since 2008. In fact, I'm actually not going to buy any more microtransactions or anything like that from any company, no matter how many realistic LeBron Jameses they put in any new games. You know, now that I think about it, that doesn't even come close to the heartbreak of watching my boy, my homie, my Mr. World of Warcraft wide completely fall apart. In fact, they have turned into a symbol of absolute trash can sauce over the past few years. After seeing the apotheosis of garbage that is Activision-Blizzard in the recent California court case, my heart breaks. Don't get me wrong, I'm not being pessimistic just because everything I love eventually turns to ash. Gaming controversy is more the norm than the exception these days. I mean, look at loot boxes. The entirety of The Last of Us 2, just to show a couple examples. But life wasn't always like this. You know, I lived in an adolescent dream where everyone thought I was super cool, WoW was fun, and gaming was filled with passionate entrepreneurs who were making art. And honestly, this was where I grew up. I grew up in front of a screen. I mean, like, my parents raised me, but that's not where I learned most of my life lessons. I'm an attorney now, and I can't help but saying, stop! You violated the law! Without, like, it doesn't feel good saying that out loud, but in my head I say that often, and it makes me feel like there's a close comfort in my life with that quote. Yes. See, to me, gaming and RPGs were like, a big bro or something that taught me tons of cool stuff, like delayed gratification. If you want that piece of gear, save for it. Or like figure out a gold exploit, which was usually my option, so maybe these weren't good life lessons. Another one was if you want people to like you, always pick the Paragon option. Quick save before stealing, and, well, maybe those aren't so amazing, but now it's like, what are you doing, big step bro? You can't be a completely misogynistic jerkbag. Now, instead of, big bro gaming being a good thing, it's just literally ruining my childhood memories. I guess it's pretty clear that gaming as a whole has changed. Pretty recently, Blizzard took out my favorite emote / spit. Yeah, and I think it's kind of sad, because that is not only how I expressed myself to the opposite faction, it's how I let everyone know that is a terrible decision to play a gnome. In fact, I think spitting was the last bastion of rebellion for gamers, especially because it was the only way to let people know, hey, you're ruining our game by buying these weird lizard monsters. We have a right to spit, and you are infringing on my right to spit. Even though I may or may not have bought the strange lizard monster, but I see the error of my ways. I apologize. See, Steve Jobs has this interesting kind of like monologue I saw spreading on the internet, and it's about how it's the marketing people who end up making something grow, but it's also the marketing people who seem to get credit for the growth. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but eventually what happens is the marketing people who are responsible for the big money start getting promoted, and next thing you know, it's the marketing people who are making most of the decisions.
Therefore, they were the ones that got promoted, and therefore they were the ones that ran the company. Well, for PepsiCo, that might have been okay, but it turns out the same thing can happen in technology companies that get monopolies, like, IBM and Xerox. If you were a product person at IBM or Xerox, so you make a better copy or a better computer. So what? When you have a monopoly market share, the company's not any more successful. So the people that can make the company more successful are sales and marketing people. And they end up running the companies. and the product people get driven out of the decision-making forums.
And you know what marketing people are best at? That's right, sexual harassment and marketing. We shouldn't be surprised that we got a mobile Diablo game out of the blue, even though gaming is bringing in more money than like the movie industry or the music industry. In fact, more than both of them combined. The mobile industry is ripe for harvest. Back in like 2019, Fortnite and Candy Crush were making $1 million a day just on iPhones. The gaming goose, the one laying the golden egg, isn't the neckbeards or gaming enthusiasts. It's the Karens and their grandchildren. They don't need to sell us in a game that we're holding on for dear life for. They know they've already got my money and probably yours too. They don't have to convince us to play a game that we've been playing for 15 years or another game that everyone is playing and you got to do it if you want to hang out with your friends. There's extra money on the table, and why would you blame the heads of the household here saying, hey, we got to squeeze everything we can from it? Why leave it out there if it's us off for grabs? You know what I mean? The word that comes to mind is that there are no consequences for taking that money. There are no consequences for squeezing the life out of this industry that we so love. And I think that matters because when you learn that there are no consequences to your actions, big or small, I think you enter into a dangerous territory. And see, we experience this a little bit in our day-to-day lives. When you're talking trash in a COD lobby and feeling like an alpha Chad, there's no way this guy on the other end is gonna reach through the screen and mess you up. I mean, maybe you'll get like DDoSed or something. Oh no, please don't, turn my internet off for 30 seconds so like my dad has to stop watching Netflix or something. And I think this kind of repeated environment breeds up a strange sense of courage, right? Like you feel like you're a little bigger than you are. And I think this kind of happens in the gaming industry as a whole, especially with, the big boy developers. Look at a hot minute ago, I remember being a little kid and going to GameStop with my mom and being like, look, more DLC for Oblivion. This is literally the game I bought Xbox Live for so I can play the Shivering Isles. And I noticed there was another piece of DLC that I did not have, the Horse Armor DLC. Now this lives in infamy in gamers' hearts because it's like $5 for like kind of a crummy piece of armor for your horse, which I don't think it actually makes your horse like safer. It just looks different. Now in hindsight, it doesn't sound strange to pay for a cosmetic mount, even just a reskin, I suppose. But this sort of courage rubs off. And now if you look at Bethesda, it's like they're selling us entire games worth of horse armor content. And it's because of this that I think we need to start holding not only ourselves, but others in the industry accountable. Not only for the moral turpitudes of recent, but for the slippery slope of abuse that we see for consumers. I mean, when you look at the way we're treating people who spend egregious amounts of money, we're not asking questions. Is there an addiction here? Is there a problem? Is this person even old enough to be buying this? We just take their money and run. I think for those of certain mental issues, maybe that's not the politically correct way of saying it, gaming is a dangerous place. So you don't even want to know how much I've spent on Fortnite skins over the past 2 years. But talking about, holding people accountable, look at the whole Hong Kong debacle. We saw it from one perspective where people got mad, but there was also protests. There were walkouts. People were not only flaming them on social media, you also had Mitsubishi. That car company, Taiwan, actually pulled out their entire sponsorship of the Hearthstone competitions. Talk about drive your ambitions straight into the ground. Yeah, I actually didn't know that was their slogan until I Googled it, but it sounded like a cool thing to say. But we have to remember it wasn't Blizzard seeing the light that made them, retract stripping, titles and money. It was actually a mass movement. It was political force, it was consumer outrage, and it was a straight kidney shot, like boom, to their wallet. See, I'm actually of the opinion that we are all whales in some degree. Maybe some more than others. Some are the big boy, sperm whales, whirls. They make a difference in the water. The big, I don't know what whales do. I have a whale shirt I should have actually worn in hindsight. But then others are like melon-headed whales, which actually is a real thing. I googled that, and they are real. Look it up. And it sucks to feel like, there's nothing I can really do. If I spend money on this, at least I get something out of the experience. I'm not at a disadvantage if I don't spend money. Well, to that I say, how many times have people tried something and it failed, only to give in to whatever is oppressing you? How many women working at Blizzard tried and felt like there was nothing going to happen because there were no consequences to the wrongs that happened to them? I don't think it's California that's going to enforce consequences. I mean, I think they will to a degree, but I think it's our job as well. We need to protect an industry that has brought us so much joy, togetherness, and growth. We need to show that we're there for people who are victims of sexist work culture and harassment. And I think the first step to doing this, in my short little video essay, is that we need to accept that we are also part of the problem, which is why I'm taking an indefinite break from WoW and keeping myself from, spending any more money on needless microtransactions or virtual currency on NBA 2K. Hey, even sketchy pre-orders or other nonsense that I feel like is just there to soak some money from you. Early access games, I'm talking to you. Anything that feeds this beast is feeding it as a whole. All ships rise together, right? I suppose what I'm trying to say, what we need to remember, is that they're just as addicted to us as we are to them. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see y'all later. Ow. That was bright.